What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Your boy Domuto. We're back with another video. Today we're watching JxmyHighroller. The NBA playoffs are completely unpredictable. That is true to the T. Hella true, bruh. Well, is it unpredictable? Matter of fact, let me take that back. It's not. Everybody that's winning right now should be winning. People that are ahead in the series. Like, I mean, you knew the Thunder should have beat the Pelicans. You knew the Nuggets would be up on the Lakers 3-1. Timberwolves. I had the Timberwolves over the Suns for me, so I was expecting a sweep. That was different. I feel like the Celtics should have swept, but they up 2-1, 3-1, something like that. And yeah, man, 2-1. And Knicks and Sixers. I mean, the Knicks are the higher seed, and they're winning. They're up 3-1. So, like, I wouldn't expect nothing too crazy going on, but let's get into it.
Over the last 2 NBA seasons, I have made a prediction on who I think will win the NBA title, and I use strictly numbers and potentially predictive metrics to narrow down my decisions. Overall, I think my predictions went all right. In 2022, I chose the Celtics to win it all, and they came within 2 games of doing just that.
Yeah.
Last season, I chose the Celtics again, and if it weren't for the Heat being the greatest 8 seed ever assembled, that might have panned out as well. So this season, I considered predicting the eventual NBA champs once again. By the way, I think it's going to be the Nuggets. But as fun as these experiments are, the reality is numbers will never get you all the way to the correct conclusion.
I just watched that Timberwolves and Suns game 4. That boy ate something cold, something different.
And just a week into the NBA playoffs, we all got a jarring reminder of just how unpredictable it can be. But Game 2 of the Lakers-Nuggets series in particular really crushed my hopes of ever being able to pin down any sort of coherent prediction. After being down 20 points in the 3rd quarter, the Nuggets crawled back and completed one of the largest comebacks in playoff history. Jokic is nearly perfect as usual to close out the game.
Then the LeBron fan become delusional that he about to come back 3-0 for some reason.
To put a dagger in the hearts of Lakers fans, and we were all stunned. But why did this comeback feel inevitable? The Nuggets were dead in the water at one point in this game, and yet I never felt like they were completely out of it. In no universe should a Miami Heat team without Jimmy Butler and Terry Rozier beat a 64-win Celtics team by double digits. And yet, was this game really all that surprising? Has the NBA, and specifically the playoffs, become more unpredictable than ever before? In the past, it always felt like there were teams who skated past the first.
I remember when the Heat won in the Garden too. I was like, what the fuck? Not in the Garden. I'm tripping. In Boston, and I was like, why the fuck? Then I realized, oh fuck, I forgot, it's the fucking Celtics. Them niggas fucking choke anything. Like, I'm like, bruh.
Round. Teams that seem to be levitating above others.
No way that he should win game. Should have won game 2.
But in today's NBA, all bets are off.
Whatever.
Any team can win at any moment. Regular season performance becoming more and more irrelevant to postseason success. But why is this? Here's a relatively normal win probability chart. The line starts in the middle, where both teams have a 50-50 chance of winning. The closer the line gets to the top or the bottom, the better one of the team's chances of winning becomes. In this game, the Bucks took an early lead and held on to it until the end of the game. This is normal. Game 2 of the Sixers-Knicks series was not.
Oh yeah. Unpredictable. That game was back and forth. Looking like a mountain.
The NBA is a volatile, unpredictable league, and there is a big reason why.
Okay.
Today's video is sponsored by SeatGeek. The NBA season is in and use code Jimmy. Is any lead safe in the NBA
But
today?
Hill, he just
10
getting
points
cardio
isn't
out
nearly
there.
enough of a cushion. A 20-point win is considered a blowout by any metric, and yet, as long as there's time left on the clock, a 20-point lead can be chipped
Okay,
away
it has been a lot of
relatively
comebacks. Let me
quickly
take that
in the
back.
NBA today. The Nuggets overcoming a 20-point deficit in Game 2 against the Lakers was remarkable. But
Like
you know
the
what's
fucking
even
Mavericks
crazier?
almost came back
With
on the
a
Clippers
minute
earlier.
and 15 seconds left in this game, the Nuggets had 92 points. They ended the game with 101. That's 9 points in 76 seconds to close out a playoff game. According to Inpredictables.com win probability model, the Nuggets had just an 18% chance of winning this game with a minute and 27 seconds left in the fourth. Even crazier, a more unlikely comeback happened on the same exact night. Take a look at the clock.
Oh yeah, it
There's
was
just
2 great
30 seconds
double
left in
headers. I
this
forgot
game.
about
The
that.
Knicks had
Yep.
96 points. When the clock hit
I watched
0,
both of these games.
they had 104. The Knicks scored 8 points in just 28
Josh Hart became a
seconds
three-point
to
shooter and
clinch
shit.
a playoff win. You cannot predict this. There's no metric that will see this coming. There's no game plan or scheme to prevent this. The Knicks had just a 1.7% chance of winning this game with 47 seconds left on the clock. A couple three-pointers and free throws later, and those chances were all but irrelevant. And even when games don't come down to the wire like this, they are still completely unpredictable. In Game 2 of the Celtics Heat series, Boston was favored by 15 points going into this game. They lost by 10 points. One of the best regular season teams in NBA history lost to a team missing 2 of their starters at home by double digits. The NBA is as volatile and unpredictable as it's ever been. Inpredictable.com's win probability model not only gives a play-by-play breakdown of how likely a team is to win or lose, it then uses this data to identify the most statistically unlikely comebacks throughout NBA history. Given a point deficit, time remaining, and ball possession, their comeback metric shows how likely a team was to win or lose based on how other teams have fared in that exact scenario over the past 10 years. A comeback score of 50 would be considered highly unlikely. This Knicks win over the 76ers in Game 2 had a comeback score of 56.8. Now, here's a chart of every game that featured one of these highly unlikely comebacks from year to year, dating back to the 1997 season. For many years, these comebacks were limited to 10, maybe 20 a season. But year after year, the number of crazy comebacks continues to climb, with the most in a single season coming this year with 32. As pace continues to increase in the NBA and teams incorporate more three-pointers into their game plan, the outcome of these games has gotten more and more unpredictable. The NBA has always been a make or miss league, but as offenses have become more potent, so has the potential for comebacks, upsets, and unforeseen results. In any given NBA game, there are 4 statistics, known as the 4 factors, that have the highest correlation to winning basketball games. How well a team shoots the ball, turnovers, offensive rebounds, and how often a team is getting to the line. How well a team does in these 4 factors will usually determine the outcome of a game. But in today's NBA, most games boil down to just one factor. Here's a chart of how often teams won a playoff game over the years when they made more three-pointers than the opposing team. Over the last 3 postseasons, when a team makes more threes than their opponents, they end up winning the game over 70% of the time, peaking in this year's playoffs where teams that make more threes than the opposing team have won the game 81% of the time. More than rebounding, more than getting to the line, it's simply making or missing threes that have become the overwhelming factor that is deciding these games. When compared to the traditional 4 factors, making more threes than the opposing team is actually a better indicator of which team will win the game than any other metric right now. And you might be thinking, well, of course the team that hits more threes wins the game the majority of the time.
That is true.
But this wasn't always the case. In fact, in the past, hitting more threes had almost no correlation to whether a team was going to win or not. From 1990 to 1994, when a team made more threes than their opponent, they won about 45% of the time. So not only were threes not prioritized, teams that relied more on three-pointers actually performed worse than other teams. From 2010 to 2014, the win rate for teams that hit more threes than their opponent in the playoffs jumped to about 55%. So just a decade ago, making more threes gave teams a slight edge over their opponent, but it was still just one of many variables that would determine the outcome of a game. In the past, three-pointers were viewed as almost a home run, a game breaker, even if the shot was a good open look. Teams didn't take a lot, and they didn't make a lot. But over the last decade, the shot has not only become the focal point for many offenses, it has become the deciding factor in the majority of these playoff games. How many games have you watched where your team gets out to a 10, 15, even 20-point lead, and despite a massive cushion, they still can't relax, knowing that all it would take is a few long bombs to shift the momentum and turn the game around? These long bombs used to be
when your team start losing a fucking 20-point lead, boy, you be getting mad as fuck.
Manageable. But now, a 15-point lead in the NBA is nothing. Teams can close that gap in the blink of an eye. In 2012,
you always make it manageable to come back.
The Miami Heat won a playoff game without making a single three-pointer. In those same playoffs, the Grizzlies had a game where they didn't make a single three and beat the Lob City Clippers by double digits.
That's crazy.
Here's a series in 2012 where the Jazz hit 9 threes throughout the entire series. Go back even further, and you'll see shooting volatility and the reliance on three-pointers dip even further. In 1994, the Celtics and Hornets combined for 13 made three-pointers throughout an entire playoff series.
That's crazy.
The Miami Heat just hit 13 threes in one half of a single game. Three-pointers are a high-variance shot inherently.
It's crazy how the evolution of basketball
when a team is only shooting
just change every
game,
year.
This variance plays a marginal role on the outcome. The result of the game is a bit more expected. But when teams are shooting 35, 40 threes a game and hitting half of them, the game isn't just affected by these shots. The entire game hinges on the outcome of these shots. A team can miss a handful of shots and find themselves on the bad end of a 15-point run, and then flip the script, hit a handful of threes themselves, and seemingly out of nowhere, they have the lead. In their first 3 games against the Nuggets, the Lakers have held a double-digit lead at some point in the game.
It's crazy.
And yet, when watching these games, the score might as well be tied with how explosive the Nuggets' offense is. And this volatility has seen a spike in the postseason.
It's funny because all 3 of those games, even when they losing, you could tell. Except for like game 2. Game 2 was crazy. I don't know how the fuck. It was like AD, D-Lo couldn't miss. But game 1 and 3, when you watch those games, even when they was kind of down, you felt like, okay. By halftime, you could tell by like the end of the second quarter, they started picking it up. We was like, okay. Like I felt like, yeah, they about to come back. They about to come back.
In comparison to the regular season this year, usually in the postseason, teams score less than they do in the regular season. The game slows down. Teams have an entire series to prep for the opposing team's
this year, that Mavericks and Clippers series going 7 games.
But over the last few seasons, this discrepancy from regular season performance to playoff performance has only grown larger. Between an increase in games missed from key players, injuries going into the playoffs, and the previous mentioned variance in shooting and scoring, a team doing well in the regular season has become more and more non-predictive of how they will do in the playoffs. Over the last 20 seasons, on average, teams are scoring about 3 to 4 less points in playoff games than they do in regular season games. So far, in the 2024 playoffs, the league is averaging 10.5 less points scored per game than they did in the regular season. That is an unprecedented gap. This fall-off in playoff scoring shows just how disconnected the regular season has gotten from the playoffs. This has always been the case, but it is far more prevalent now than ever before. Here's a moment in Game 2 of the Bucks-Pacers series. With less than 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter, the Pacers had a 4-point lead on the Bucks. That's a one-possession game. 5 minutes and 23 seconds later, the Pacers were up by 23 points.
Damn.
Here's Game 1 of the Suns T-Wolves series where the Suns were down 15 points with about 10 minutes left in the fourth. Within 2 minutes of game time, they were down by 25. Game 1,
It'd be like that
versus
sometime.
Celtics. With 3:32 left in the third quarter, the Heat were down 17. A lot, but still very manageable. 3 minutes later, the Heat were losing by 32 points. These kinds of scoring outbursts are happening all the time now, and they end up being the deciding factor of these games more and more often. Andrew Lopez of ESPN wrote a great article on this in March of this year, detailing the change in scoring variance the league has seen over the last few years and how some players and coaches are reacting to these scoring explosions. Victor Wembanyama said during his time in the NBA so far, he's learned a 20-point lead is nothing. Minnesota head coach Chris Finch was also quoted saying, "You see a lot of unpredictable results regardless of the point differential and the margins of the score. Like, wow, how that team beat that team." And then you look at the column and they made 22 threes.
Yeah.
There was a time where you weren't taking 20 threes in a game. It's all down to that. But the most eye-opening part about this article was this stat. When Steve Kerr began his tenure with Golden State, the Warriors strung together 114 consecutive wins when holding a lead of at least 15 points. Now, the longest active streak when taking a 15-point lead is just 35. No lead is safe, and any team can win at any time.
About OKC, okay, Thunder, that's what we do.
Volatility has altered the NBA, and it's probably the simplest way to understand exactly what's going on in these games. You ever play Mario Kart? Yeah, the racing game for children. Well, in that game, whenever you get out to a massive lead, the game will artificially speed up the AI racers so they can catch up to you and make the race more competitive. And if you fall behind, the AI racers will slow down so you can catch up. This is a mechanism built into the game.
It don't feel like that.
Banding. The mechanism exists so if you're really good at the game, it still remains challenging. And if you're not so good at the game, you still have a chance to win. No matter the gap between you and the other racers, the game will close it and make the races competitive. Scoring variance, three-point volatility, and shot making has triggered this rubber banding in the NBA. When a team jumps ahead by too much, the other team comes racing back. Got a team that is the deepest, most talented team in the league? Yeah, well, we have three-pointers, and we know how to use them. Just went on a hot streak, hit a bunch of shots, got out to a lead. That's all right. You'll eventually get cold, and we'll hit an improbable amount of three-pointers in a row.
That shit's going 7 games,
team
but
can meet all the prerequisites
nobody cares,
to be a
though.
title contender. They could check all the boxes that past champions
Cavaliers
checked off.
and Magic.
They could be the clear favorite in any given series. And still, the NBA is as unpredictable as ever, where no lead is safe and no team is safe.
Sir, fire bid by JxmyHighroller. Yeah, it is very. I retract what I said at the beginning of the video. It is very unpredictable. I wasn't expecting him to break it down like this, but yeah, definitely very unpredictable because it's been a lot of comebacks. And not to be teams that just super dominant over their team, over the people that's they versing. So. Like even though Minnesota swept, it was a close series. Like all those games were pretty close from the Suns. Like they put up a good fight, except probably like 1 or 2 of them. But anyway, shout out to JxmyHighroller for this video. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you check out the last JxmyHighroller video right here. Check out that video right here, and you know what I'm saying. I'll catch you next time. Peace.